Do one of these moves.
So here's your host.
That's going to be the intro. Welcome to the Social Pint. It's a new series where we have important conversations over beer. I'm joined by my friend, Luke Segars, and today we're going to talk about a really exciting topic called net neutrality. Don't stop the video yet. Don't pause it. Don't go away. I know net neutrality sounds super boring, but it's an important topic. It's actually super complex, and there's a lot of moving pieces. The one thing that you can be sure is going to happen in this video is it's all going to be very factual based. We're not going to throw a whole lot of opinion in there about what way we think that the internet should go or the way it should or should not be regulated. It's more or less just about what are the facts, how does the entire ecosystem look, what are the pros and cons of everything, and then let you guys decide for yourselves what you think is the right way to go.
And there are a ton of opinions out there, very well thought out opinions on both sides that are not hard to find. So, yeah.
Perfect.
We're more informational.
Informational. What is net neutrality, or how does that impact the internet as we know it?
Yeah, so the idea of net neutrality is it's a set of ideas more than anything that say that information that's traveling across the internet should be treated the same, regardless of what type of information it is. That's probably the most concise description you could give to it. But if you think about a couple years ago, people were talking about fast lanes and slow lanes of the internet. That's kind of related to net neutrality. There have been a bunch of issues that have come up specifically with ISPs, internet service providers, so Comcast and AT&T and companies like that, that have to do with net neutrality, and a lot of stuff related to BitTorrent and Napster and some of those fine things from years ago.
Old school Napster, LimeWire.
LimeWire?
I never illegally downloaded anything.
No. What, was that an option? Is that what those were for?
I don't know. What is LimeWire? I don't... Huh?
I'm just ready to have fun. There was the whole intellectual property side of that, but there was also internet service providers were trying to cut traffic off because it was BitTorrent traffic. And that became a big issue for a while too. The intention, of course, being to stop illegal file sharing, but if you can say this type of traffic can go and this type of traffic can't go, and it's up to the company to make that decision, then you could, with a little bit of creativity, see how that could turn a little darker. All of this, I should say, is also about ISPs, internet service providers, which are the gateway. This is less about the Facebooks and the Googles and the Netflixes and places like that, but it's more about, if you think about the internet as like the interstate system, it's about the actual roads, right? How you get to the websites you go to or the services that you use. So the internet service providers are in this awkward middle ground where no one really likes them, everyone has to use them, and PR tends to be a problem for them.
I guess from what I understand, there are two big philosophies about how to view the internet. One is to view the internet as a right, and one way is to view it as a privilege. Could you talk about each of those a little bit?
The idea of net neutrality generally falls on the side of the internet access being a right, meaning not that it should be free for everyone, but that if you're talking about giving freedom either to businesses or freedom to people, you want to give freedom to people. Meaning that if they want to send a message through some super sketchy protocol, right? Or they want to be transferring movies around, right? Which includes terrorists and stuff, right? Like people should be able to do what they want on the internet. And there's still other laws, of course, that say you can't like steal things or hack, right? But you should be able, your ISP should not be able to prevent you from doing this stuff. Which is one side. That's the net neutrality side. All data should be treated equally. The other side, where it's kind of more of the privilege, is putting the power on the side of the companies. And generally, this is not a side that, at least in the sources that I read, gets a lot less attention or a lot less positive light. But it's a very, from the ISP's perspective, it's a very pro-business thought, right? It's like, if you want the internet to get faster, if you want access to get better, if you want these things to continue to improve, then there should be some sort of financial incentive for companies to compete, right? Which is like Econ 101 type stuff. If you tell them that they're not allowed to charge more than $45 a month, for example. That would be great for access. For empowering people. It would be very bad for encouraging them to run more wires and dig up, all this stuff and make all this big upfront investment that being an ISP takes. And so that's really where the difficulty is. The difficulty is that it costs so much to be an ISP. And to be a new ISP is almost impossible. But because it costs so much, what do you do with those costs? Do you try and get the government to help out with that so that people have more widespread access? Or do you try and put it all on the companies, in which case some of the decisions that they make are going to be more in their court? Should you be able to charge this person $80 and this person $50? Like if they're doing the exact same thing, it's probably not a very strong argument to say you should be able to. But what if they are? What if the one person is using a ton more data, right? Or for whatever reason, costing the ISP, a lot more. And in that case, this is where there's been a lot of headbutting happening when you get people who are sharing just a preposterous amount of data, being kind of protected from having to pay anything more than other people by something like a regulation that says you have to charge everyone the same amount of money. And so these things that can come out with very specific intentions can actually be incredibly difficult for companies to sustain in the long run, for ISPs to sustain in the long run.
I need another drink.
I need just a line of backups here.
So going back to people who view the internet as a right, that all data should be treated equally, regardless of what it is, where it comes from, or how it's used. And companies are saying that's not really the case. If we take the road metaphor, the highway metaphor in the same way, I can sort of see what companies are saying, because that would be like me saying, well, I want to drive a car that's got giant spikes on the wheels that's going to eat up and destroy all the asphalt, but I have a right to this road and you can't stop me. That's not necessarily true. Rights can only go to a certain standpoint, or to beyond a certain point, it just becomes unreasonable.
Yeah. And I think you do get a lot of this, again, is just stuff we haven't really thought about, or I think a very small population has thought a ton about it. In terms of, so far the internet in America is a pretty creative force, in the sense that like we haven't had a lot of restrictions, right? You have it every minute of every day for the most part. You can go to whatever sites you want. There's no real censorship or sites that are super unreliable or anything like that. You don't have to pay more if you do more. You just kind of, it's like a buffet, sort of, right? It's just like a information buffet. Oh yeah. That's very good.
Lost connection. I think the GoPro died. We're down to one camera, so don't mess it up.
The thing about the highways is that there are things that have costs, and like us sitting around and falling asleep to Netflix costs Netflix money, and it costs our ISP money. Not much money, right? But like, where does that cost go? Where's the right place for that cost to go? Should it be Netflix? Should it be our ISP? Or should it be us? And those are, I guess, the three options. Right now, it's not us. It's the other two, which works out really well for us.
For us, it's great. It's not
buffet.
us. It's those other guys. Let them handle it. We just get to enjoy the buffet that is House of Cards.
And the downside, exactly, for like the sixth time around, right? Yeah. So the downside of this is if you say, hey, give me a buffet, I want it for free, restaurant, you pay for it. What's the restaurant going to do? It's going to try and make that food really cheaply. It's going to try and get away with everything it can get away with, which is not the position you necessarily want your information services falling into, right? And so you got to be careful with that too.
But the flip side of that is if we go with the privilege, right? And we say that, well, no, you don't have to give it to them for free or for as cheap as possible. You can charge what you need to charge. But the way that ISPs are set up, they're local monopolies. So it would be like I run a buffet, and everyone who lives in a 3-mile radius has to come to my buffet to eat. They can't go anywhere else. They can't go to any of the restaurants. And so that's the flip side of where, well, that's a local monopoly. It doesn't become fair to the consumer at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So it's unfair both ways, no matter how you look at it. Right, the way that the market exists in America, at least. I don't know, other places in the world. It's unfair to somebody. There's no good system right now. Drink break.
Drink break.
I forgot what we were talking about.
Are the ISPs a core part of the business ecosystem of the internet, or are they the highway system of the internet? You don't think of toll roads as being part of your city's economy necessarily. Maybe if you work for the city, you do. But really you think about, I'm driving to Walmart, and you don't think about the highway as being a part of your equation of how much this thing's going to cost, right? And are you thinking about, this is going to cost me so and so much bandwidth to leave Netflix on at night. That's an expense that isn't worth it to me, right? It would be kind of a similar sort of thing.
So net neutrality, super complex subject. We're not going to pretend like we know the answers.
It's easy to get into opinions. It's easy especially to get into kind of uninformed opinions. And I find that I learn more stuff every time I look around on this issue. So it's definitely not simple and worth looking into, especially if you haven't really looked into it much before.
What I do want to do is throw it to you, the viewer, who've joined us for this video. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. How do you think we should approach net neutrality and the future of the internet, and how ISPs, businesses, and people should all interact in this ecosystem? Let us know. We're curious. Comments below.
Yeah, absolutely. And see.
I don't know what this is.
I love it.
E.T.
It's calming.
Oh no. With all of that stuff, I'll find the closing somewhere in there.